everyone, it's Nichol Spohr and I'm back with another year of Christmas project. These are some classic Christmas foiled wreath cards and I am really just mixing and matching tons of things from my stash. Nothing is new on these cards at all, and if you have followed me for any length of time, you know that that's one of my very favorite ways to create. So hopefully this project inspires you to maybe dig into your stash, see what you have, and see what you can create. And I'm going to talk a little bit about different products as I'm creating these cards. The basis for my entire card today is this wreath, and this is actually called the sketched leafy wreath from Simon Says Stamp, and this came out a few months ago. It is not a brand new product, but it's not super old either, and it's not a holiday product. I had a request from a Patreon member to use this in a card, and I thought, wouldn't it make a pretty holiday card? And so I am foiling these wreaths on some Hammermill cardstock. When at all possible, I love Hammermill cardstock for foiling because you get the best results. And another great thing about this particular foil plate is that there's a coordinating die. So I've got both of my machines here, my Glimmer hot foil system and my Spellbinders die cutting machine, and I am using them together. Obviously you take your platform out of your hot foil machine, you run it through your die cutting machine to foil, and then you'd use the coordinating die to die cut. I love to do assembly line style creating. I foiled a bunch of these wreaths all at once, and then I ended up only creating 4, and I will be completely honest with you, I did not have enough brown cardstock for the backgrounds, so I most likely will create more of these later, or I can use the wreaths for another project. I went ahead and saved all of them, but this would be a really good project to start now. I'm thinking Christmas in July. I know July is here about over. I've tried to include several a year of Christmas projects this month to get caught up, number one, and also number two, because this is the time we're all starting to think about our Christmas projects. And I personally love this card. This is one I could see making a bunch of to mail out, even though it does contain a lot of steps. You could always eliminate some of those things to make it a little quicker if you want to, but starting early is key, and you could more than likely get plenty of them done in time for the holiday season. Once I'm done with my foiling and die cutting, oh, and I should mention, I am using the Spellbinders Champagne foil. This is a really pretty color. I just picked something in the gold brass color family. So if you have gold, brass, champagne, any color like that, I think it'll be amazing. Then I'm using the G46 and G28 Copic markers to color in the leaves. So this is one of the most time-consuming parts of this project. I would suggest, if you want to eliminate some of the time, ink blend the entire wreath. I personally wanted some of the white outline on my card, so I don't mind that. The coloring is quick, especially if you break up this project into maybe multiple evenings, multiple weekends, whatever the case may be. It wouldn't be too bad, but it is some coloring. So maybe you want to ink blend the whole thing. Maybe you want to use detail blending brushes to try to keep that ink, just within the leaf shapes, or maybe you want to leave it just like it is and not add any color at all. That would be pretty too, for a completely different look. I went through and added G46 to all of the leaves, and what I found worked really well is I just kind of spin the wreath around, as you can see. So I will color in the leaves and then I kind of just spin it, color in the rest. Now this comes so important because when you go for the blending with G28, I'm just spinning it around, and that way I don't miss any of the leaves. So my big time-saving tip here is I'm not going back with my lighter color marker and blending this out. So I kind of like that they have a little bit more of a messy blend to them, where you're getting a little bit of the leaf detail into all of the petals here on the leaves. So that's kind of my goal or my plan here, is to just kind of feather in the darker color. And I am going to do this for both. How about all of my wreaths? Now, I've talked a little bit about this in a couple of my other videos where I'm mass producing, where I do a tester card in quilting. It's called a tester block, just to make sure everything is ready to go, that it's going to work out. So I did do one completely from start to finish after I had foiled all of the wreaths, and then I went ahead and I mass produced the rest of my cards. I am using one of my very favorite backgrounds. This is the Hero Arts Noel print bold print background, and stamping it with champagne ink on Hero Arts sand cardstock. We're doing landscape style cards. Now, when you first look at this, you might think the text looks really bold. That's going to be way too dark. It's going to take away from the design of the wreath, and I'm going to show you how I fix that here in a second. But again, just mass producing, stamping the backgrounds. My love of text backgrounds is still strong, and this has been out for a couple years now and continues to be one of my very favorites. So now that we have our backgrounds stamped, I am going to grab a stencil mat and my same cappuccino ink and a blending brush, and we are going to go around the edges of our panel and blend some more of the cappuccino ink in. This is instantly going to kind of fade the text just a little bit. It's not going to take the text away. You're still going to have that great text background. It's just going to give it a little bit darker look. It's so pretty. If you want to add some white splatter now, I think that would be pretty, almost like a snow splatter all over the background or something like that, or gold splatter, whatever the case may be. I think that this would be a great time to do that. I didn't. I kind of kept mine a little bit cleaner for this particular card. But you can see that it mutes the text enough that it's really going to help our wreath shine, but yet our background doesn't lose any interest, and that is the look I'm going for. And this would be pretty in lots of color combinations. So maybe you want to do a green background or a red or whatever the case may be. Now I am going to speed up the video. I have lots of die cut pieces. I am using the Concord and 9th Fresh Cut Florals 4 dies. Now, there are lots of poinsettia dies out there. I have a lot in my collection. I just picked one. I actually picked one that I don't think I've used before. I've had it in my stash for a while. Waffle Flower has great ones. Hero Arts has great ones. Lawn Fawn has a great poinsettia die. I am going to link all of those down in the description below. Check any of those out. You could use any of those to create some really amazing cards if you maybe don't have these. So definitely check your stash and see what you have. I'm just naming some that I have in my personal stash off the top of my head. You might know of some others. I am inking up the greenery with some sage and pine positively saturated inks, and then all of the poinsettia pieces with watermelon and cherry positively saturated inks. As the ink dries, it is going to smooth out a little bit, but you can see that I am just using 2 colors, and I'm trying to get a little bit of variegation in my flowers. Each flower is going to have 5 pieces, 2 big, 2 medium, and 1 small, and then I'm using 2 greenery pieces per wreath. This just adds a little additional interest and fun. I am going to move all of my pieces, and I am going to put the very center of my poinsettia on some Post-it tape. I'm actually just using the backing sheet, pardon me, for foam adhesive squares. I have shook up the bottle of Tim Holtz Gilded Foundry Wax. I have done several videos where I have used this here on my channel. I will link to those at the end of the video, and as well as in the description below. This is an amazing product. I can't believe that when it first came out, I thought I didn't need it. I literally want to use it on everything. So I am using the tip of my finger and wiping it on the tip of all of my poinsettia petals. Now it dries pretty quick, but it dries really dull. And I'm doing all of the inking first. You could use a brush or something if you wanted to. I didn't mind, I guess, getting messy. But in order to set it so it doesn't flake off, you do need to heat it. And when you heat it, it gives you that fantastic gilded look. I love the little bit of messy gilding on the tip of each. I did all of my inking, and then I'm literally using my tweezers to hold it to keep my fingers out of the way, and I'm heat setting it with my heat tool. I am going to do this for every single petal. I know that this seems like very time consuming. In real time, this step, the heating step or the inking and heating step, took about 7 minutes. It really wasn't that bad. So I was very, very pleasantly surprised. And it's imperfect. I love that. For the center, you could totally die cut these from some glitter or foil cardstock. I actually didn't disconnect my dies, and so I just die cut everything out of white, and I went ahead and pressed some of the gilded foundry wax on the flower centers and then heat set those as well. That's called the lazy girl's way of of doing that without having to get out another piece of paper. I mean, my fingers were already messy. On the back of each of my wreaths, I'm going to use foam adhesive squares, and we're going to pop our wreath up on this text background. So I will tell you, as I had planned my card and played around, I had done most of the steps prior to picking out the background. I had my wreath and flower and everything sitting there, and I could not figure out what color of background. And once I did this kind of craft colored background, it was perfect because I think it sets off the wreath beautifully. I am going to assemble my flowers, and I am along the stitching line on this particular wreath, and a lot of the poinsettia dies out there I think kind of have something similar. They're not all going to be exactly the same, but a lot of similar ones. You can kind of bend them and fold them up so they have a little more texture to them, which you can see I'm doing here. My reverse tweezers are always my best friend when creating, as you can kind of grip them and hold them. And then I'm finishing with the little gilded centerpiece of my flower, and I'm going to continue this for the remaining cards, no matter how many this is. I would say if you're splitting this up, let's say you're making 25 of these cards, I would definitely split it up into doing all of your wreaths one night, maybe you foil, then you color, do all your backgrounds and your die cutting of your floral pieces, ink all of them, and then maybe assemble all of the flowers. You can definitely break it into many little manageable bits and bytes, which will make it a lot easier. I'm going to add my little center, and I am simply just doing the same thing over and over. Now, once we have all of our flowers assembled and all of the greenery added to our wreath, which I feel like the little bit of greenery as well as the poinsettia really gives it that holiday feel where it wouldn't necessarily be holiday before. Imagine coloring in the leaves with fall colors if you want a fall wreath. So definitely keep that in mind. I think it really works for a lot of different seasons and occasions. Once I'm done with this, I need to figure out my greetings, and I actually ended up combining some greetings from both the Holiday Silhouettes and Ornamental Christmas. These were both new stamp sets from the Stamptember 2021 release last year. And I am stamping the word Christmas with Mocha Positively Saturated ink. The phrase above it, wishing you a very merry, with pine ink. And then the From Me to You phrase from the Ornamental Christmas, I'm stamping with cherry ink. And this is going to give us 3 shades of greeting. I used a little Post-it tape to mask off parts of Wishing You a Very Merry Christmas. For me, I did try stamping and embossing with gold on white cardstock, and it just wasn't showy at all. I personally love the green, red, and brown. I think it really ties in to the background or the whole design, pardon me, of the card a lot better than maybe embossed. Definitely didn't want to go black here. I think black ink is going to be a little too harsh, and this just completely made me happy. So lots of stamping. We're going to go ahead and die cut all those greetings. As I mentioned, the From Me to You, I always love a little strip next to a die cut greeting. And then we're going to die cut this with the Sentiment Labels die, and then we can start putting it all together. This would be a step like this second part of the phrase where you could leave it off if you wanted to, just to save yourself a little stamping time, a little die cutting time, or another idea, just trim it with your paper trimmer and don't die cut it, as that does include or create a little bit more work. I'm using the new Simon Says stamp low tack tape to hold my dies in place as I run them through my die cutting machine. And then I'm being super careful where I'm putting my foam adhesive squares. I'm so sorry, I'm out of the frame of the camera. It's only back behind the S and the CHR in Christmas. The rest is liquid glue, and then I'm using a little tiny piece of foam tape underneath just the first part of the phrase. So anything that is over the edge or over the wreath, I am not putting foam adhesive under that because it's going to be a little wonky. I'm only doing it on anything that overhangs the wreath. We're going to do this on all 3 cards. And I love it. I'm loving the whole design of this. I hope you guys have loved this too. I can tell already that every year I kind of go in a theme, I feel like. And I have done a couple of wreath card projects and then a wreath tag. I think wreaths might be my thing for 2022. I guess we'll see. But I have found myself really drawn to wreath products. So I always find it funny to look back and kind of see what was I into that year. Then in the Simon Says stamp triangle tray, I am going to dump out some of these gold pearls from Pretty Pink Posh, and I'm going to add a little trio of the teeniest, tiniest ones in the middle of the poinsettia. We're going to add some red pearls. I'm using the big ones. I hardly ever do that, but I feel like the big ones work really good on this size of wreath. So I'm glad I had them because I think I've talked about that before. I don't often use the biggest size. And then I'm adding a scattering of matte gold stars throughout the rest of the panel before adhering it to a white side fold card base. This card combines products from Hero Arts, Simon Says Stamp, Concord and 9th, and Pretty Pink Posh. So lots of different companies represented. It is truly one of my all-time favorite things to do. Oh, and Tim Holtz. It's one of my very favorite things to do is to mix and match. So shop your stash, see what you might have in your collection to create something similar. I would love to see if you create something. Definitely tag me on Instagram. I love seeing your creations. And I hope you've enjoyed this latest video in my Year of Christmas series. My next Year of Christmas series, which will be in August of 2022, will be brand new product. So I'm really excited about that because I have been kind of dipping into my stash a lot, but the next video will feature brand new products. So it'll be on a release day. I'm not going to say what company yet, but definitely stay tuned for that. So very much just assembly line style, all the little confetti. The finishing touches to me are always what makes the project come to life. Thanks again for joining me for another A Year of Christmas project. The supplies I use to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video in my Year of Christmas series that you might be interested in. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. If you would like to become a member of Patreon, please click the link in the description below. We would love to see you over there as part of our community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new card making video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.